Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jason Wright Show's Best Friday Ever. It has been a minute. In fact, I think this might be the first Best Friday Ever I have done for 2023, and I'm going to tell you why. It's this thing called the resistance. What is the resistance? Well, let me tell you where I first learned of this concept of the resistance. It was from Stephen Pressfield, who is the author of Gates of Fire, The Legend of Bagger Vance. Stephen Pressfield, has become like a virtual mentor to me, and here's why. It took Stephen Pressfield writing unsuccessfully for 30 years before he became a successful author. The Legend of Bagger Vance was his first novel that received any real attention, and of course it then went on to be made into a movie directed by Robert Redford, starring Will Smith and Matt Damon. But before then, he had written screenplays. He had written novel after novel that no one read. And he talks about in one of his best books, and see, this is the thing that's kind of odd for me about Stephen Pressfield, is that I've read Gates of Fire. That's his book about the Battle of Thermopylae and the 300 Spartans. Great novel. I read it, but I got to admit, I read it kind of half-heartedly. I've never read The Legend of Bagger Vance, but I've read a lot of his books on the writing process and how you become a creator. And his best book on this topic is The War of Art, not to be confused with The Art of War by Sun Tzu, but The War of Art, in which he talks about just what a battle and what a struggle being a creative or an entrepreneur is. And so, since I've been going through this little battle of the resistance myself, I thought, why not come on here this morning and talk about it? That's why I haven't been doing my Best Friday Evers. I have not had as many interviews starting off this year as I normally would have. It's because I've been battling the resistance. And so what is the resistance? The resistance is that thing that, we've got enough outside forces, right, trying to keep us from doing the things we want to do. We're constantly looking outward, and there's all these walls and barriers between us and what we really want to pursue and achieve in our lives. But what about those internal points of resistance? What about those things that we create, that self-sabotage that we allow to stop us from pursuing whatever goal, whatever ambition, whatever vocation, whatever relationship that we want to have? We are some master self-sabotagers. And so I just got off my my bi-weekly mastermind call with three of the most honorable, wisest friends that I have. And by the way, if you do not have a group of men or women, if you're a woman, that you regularly contact with no agenda other than lifting one another up, trying to be as like what the Bible calls iron sharpening iron, I highly encourage that. This is one of the highlights. It will be the highlight of this week for me for sure. And today I was in the hot seat, which what we do is every week we go around and one of us is on the hot seat, just kind of talk about what are you working on? What are some challenges? What can we do to help to support you? And this idea of the resistance, and I brought up Stephen Pressfield and how I'm going through his library of books on how to write and how to create and how to overcome some of the struggles of that process. And I thought, you know what? There's probably some people on the other side of the microphone that are themselves dealing with this thing called the resistance. And so I thought, what a great way to wrap up the week, to hopefully get you to just kind of ponder on this topic over the weekend. And then when you hit Monday, think to yourself, what areas of my life am I allowing the resistance to stop me from taking that leap, pushing forward, continuing to take just that one step forward toward what I ultimately want to achieve in my life that I will find meaningful and purposeful, and it will bring not only me joy, but will have the most impact on my family and the community around me. So in order to do this, I also thought I would just invite on the show my virtual mentor, Stephen Pressfield himself. Well, I couldn't get a hold of Stephen, so here is a video that I want to play. I want to play a little segment of where Stephen Pressfield himself talks about this thing that we call the resistance. So here is what Stephen Pressfield has to say about the resistance.
Well, how do you overcome it? Once you identify the voices that you hear in your head that are really not you, They're really this negative force that's out there that's resisting you. As an example, if you ever try to meditate and you try to quiet your mind, you find just these crazy things go through your head one after the other. And if you identify with them and you say, that's me, then you're in trouble. But if you recognize them as just sort of alien, visitations, you can just let them pass through and keep working. So, okay, how do you overcome resistance? For me, the policy that I use, or the phrase that I use, is turning pro, which is a kind of a different attitude from being an amateur to being a professional. Now, an amateur hits a sticking point, like if you're going to play basketball and your ankle hurts, you'll just retire to the bench and say, hey, it hurts. But a pro, like Kobe Bryant or somebody like that, learns to play hurt. And a pro learns to do all the things that we do on our regular jobs, but apply it to our love, the love of our life, our work. A pro shows up every morning no matter what. A pro stays on the job all through the day. A pro doesn't over-identify with the work so that if there's a failure, it knocks him out of the batter's box. A pro doesn't take failure personally or success personally. A pro is patient. A pro endures adversity. A pro plays hurt. All of this kind of attitude of a professional helps you attain that sort of lunch pail, hard hat, attitude that's not precious, not a prima donna, not a diva, but a hard-working, hit 'em every day, go for it, infantry attack mode. And that, for me, is how you get something done from A to Z.
Great words of wisdom right there from Stephen Pressfield. I'm reminded of a story that my buddy Josh Tomlin, a professional baseball player, once told me. He's in Boston, and he's on the pitching mound. It's during the playoffs. He's pitching for the Atlanta Braves. And all of a sudden, he looks over, and he sees this guy on the third baseline just flipping him off. The whole stadium had started yelling his name, Tomlin, Tomlin. And he looks over, and he sees this guy flipping him off. Everyone at Fenway wanted him to get the hell off the mound. This guy is flipping him off, and it got into Josh's head. He looks over, and he's like, what the heck? But here's the thing. He's a professional baseball player. He can't just go, wow, I'm out. I'm walking off. No, he's a pro. There is no walking off. Now, that is a dramatic example of having to overcome the resistance. But what about you in your life? What about something that you have tried? Let's say, like, for example, I'll give you a firsthand account. I've written 2 books now that most of you have never read. So basically, if you're a creator, what the resistance says is, you've written 2 books that no one has read, you suck, stop writing. Okay? The professional says, I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to continue on. Stephen Pressfield, who you just heard from, he wrote bad books for 30 years, screenplays for 30 years, until he finally broke out with the novel, The Legend of Bagger Vance. It was 30 years of sitting in the seat, pecking away at his Corona typewriter every single day. And with all the rejection, publishers, agents, Hollywood producers that would read the screenplay saying, no, Stephen, we don't want this. This sucks. No way. Not going to make it. Not going to give you any money. No. For 30 years. But what he realized, that just like Josh Tomlin listening to those shouts from the Fenway faithful, those producers and those editors and those agents saying, no, Stephen, we don't want to read your writing, it didn't get him to walk away from the mound. Instead, he stayed there and he kept throwing pitches each and every day until finally, at nearly 60 years old, he breaks out. What is it right now that you are allowing the resistance to keep you from pushing forward in? Is it because you think of you're worried about what people will think about you? Let me tell you something. I heard this past week a really great anecdote as it relates to worrying about what people think. You know, in your 20s and 30s, you care what everyone thinks. You care about, do people think you're successful? Do they think you've got a lot of money? You care about what everyone thinks. And then you turn 40 and you don't care what anybody thinks. And then something magical happens. Now, I haven't hit this point yet. I have hit the 40 where you just don't care. I don't care what people think anymore. It's a very freeing thing. I always tell people that when I turned 40, my I don't give a bleep meter just pegged. I don't care. But then you hit your 60s, and what you realize, according to this, I think it might have been Stephen Pressfield that said this, you hit your 60s and what you realize is no one was ever thinking about you to begin with. Here's the thing. People have too much going on in their own lives to worry about what you've got going on. They don't have time to think about you. They've got their own struggles, their own fears. Their children that they're trying to raise into productive human beings. Their wives and their husbands that they're trying to work things out with. They're not thinking about you. They're just not. Don't let the resistance cause self-sabotage in your life. Push through it. And look, as is the case, and I've said this before on the show, as is the case on most of these episodes, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself. That's why I came on here today, the first Best Friday ever of 2023, to tell you the resistance has kept me from coming at you. The resistance has kept me from stepping up to this microphone. And then I heard a crazy statistic yesterday when I was doing an interview with a guy, Bryce Prescott. I hope you'll listen to that interview. It's going to be fantastic. Bryce is a cool dude. Had so much fun talking to him. But he told me that, of all the over 2 million podcasts out there, the average number of episodes for each podcast is 7. Well, I've got well over 200 episodes. Let me tell you something. That was overcoming a lot of resistance, because when I first started, I would look at these downloads and I would see that you weren't listening. You weren't listening. You couldn't have been. You couldn't have been one of those 50 people. Maybe you were. And if you were, thank you. I'm so glad. But you kept pushing. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And so, but then after a while, the resistance, it's still there. You have to, it never goes away. And so for some reason, whenever I came into 2023, I was like, do I just need to stop writing, stop creating content, stop creating my courses, stop creating the podcast, just do nothing. Well, the resistance was about to completely slay me. It's this dragon that I had been doing battle with, and it almost just completely annihilated me. But I'm back and I'm here. And I want you to stay. If nothing else, I hope today, this episode gave you that little bit of encouragement to think to yourself, what is it? What is it that I am allowing the resistance to beat me at doing? And go get it. Hey, I've got a favor. I want you to please consider going out to jasonrightnow.com/MTH and check out my latest course that I'm going to be launching February 19th, my birthday. It is a course about human optimization. Now, it's called Massively Transformative Habits for a reason. This is about the habits that we need to develop as human beings to best optimize our mind, our body, our emotions for a more optimized, joyful, productive, and happy life. Okay, that's what the course is about. But here's the thing. Unlike a lot of courses, this isn't just a way to teach you and tell you about the things that you should be doing. It's about how you actually make them habitual. Okay, so we're going to go over things like energy harvesting, being able to maximize your energy for incredible output. We're going to be talking about flow state. How can you 5x your production by being able to be laser focused and fully present on the task at hand? Can you imagine that? Could you imagine if you could do in 2 hours what it takes the average person 8 hours to do? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about immune-centric health. Now, this is one of my favorite topics, because here's what I have learned over the past year and a half from my mentor, Joel Green, who wrote the Immunity Code. I became an immune-centric health certified health coach from him, not because I want to be a full-time health coach, but I wanted to learn the ins and outs of slowing the aging process and being as healthy as possible. We've all walked through this COVID journey. It really got me thinking about a lot of things, not just slowing the aging process, but how I could have a robust immune system. And it turns out that the two go hand in hand. That's why I chose to put in this MTH course immune-centric health, because I want to give you the tools and the training that I have learned to have a robust immune system, because here's the deal. A robust immune system means lower inflammation, means better glucose and blood sugar control, which then leads to less inflammation, which means to slower aging. They go hand in hand, so we're going to talk about that. But here's the real cool thing about it. I don't just tell you all the things that you need to do. Look, you can scroll through Instagram in about 20 minutes. You can find out you should be taking ice baths. You should be doing infrared sauna. You should be doing intermittent fasting. You can hear all the things. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this to be healthier. But that doesn't mean you're going to do those things. You might do them for a week or so, but then how do you make it stick? Well, it comes down to the science of behavior. You have to understand behavioral science to then develop the habits. You've got to tap into your neurochemistry and figure out how your mind works. Understand those hormones in our brains that make us want to do something or not do something. Those things that the neurochemistry, the hormones that shoot whenever we actually are fearful or whenever we have joy, whenever we have reward. We learn how to leverage this neurochemistry to make us do the things that we actually want to do. We look at behavioral science and how to start small. One of my favorite sayings ever is from the Navy SEALs. I learned this from Mark Devine, a former Navy SEAL commander and founder of SEALFIT. This is what it is. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. What this means is when we can figure out how to slow things down, take them in very small increments, then eventually we can do them smoothly. And if we can do a thing smoothly, well, then we can start to really do it masterfully. So that's what it's about. So please go check out MTH at jasonrightnow.com/MTH. It's massively transformative habits. And here's the cool thing about it. Now you're going to see on there that there's an application for it. This is because I want to know that this is right for you. I'm only opening up 50 seats for this first cohort, okay? Because it's going to be a mix of virtual and live instruction, meaning there are some courses, some audio messages that are already pre-recorded, but we're also going to have live sessions, distance sessions, okay? I want to know that it's a cohort of individuals who can create a network of working together and encouraging together, and you're there for the right reasons, and it's a good mix for you and for me and for the rest of the cohort. So there is an application you have to go through, but here's the deal. Don't worry about applying. If you want to, just fill out the contact sheet and say, hey, Jason, this is what I'm struggling with. This is something I want. I'm not really struggling, but I really want to level up in. Do you think the course would help me with this? And I will personally respond to you. And if we have to schedule a call before you sign up, the course is $499, but if you will use the promo code podcast, you're going to get $100 off. So it's $399 for this 8-week course on how to optimize the human experience. And let me tell you something, I'm obsessed with giving you more value than you pay for. So let me tell you something. It will be the best $399 you've ever spent. I guarantee it. You will come out of it massively transformed in a way that will make your life more joyful, more productive, and better. But if you don't, if you go through it and you go, this was the biggest waste of my time I've ever had, I'll give you every penny back. Okay? You have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. So check that out. And until we meet again, take this weekend to figure out what is the resistance that you're facing. What self-sabotage are you allowing into your life to keep you from walking into your fullest life? And until we meet again, then continue, please, by all means, to improve. Always and always. I'm Jason, and I'm out.